All right, let's talk about a word you've probably heard thrown around a ton if you're in the AI space, MLOps. But what is it, really? Like, what does it actually mean? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on it. We're going to figure out why this thing is, without a doubt, the most important piece of the puzzle for making machine learning, actually work out in the wild. And, this quote from Elon Musk just hits the nail on the head. He says, machine learning engineering is just 10% machine learning and 90% engineering. And that right there, that is the biggest misconception about this whole field. We get so excited about the fancy algorithm, right? That brilliant little piece of code that makes the magic happen. But the truth is, that's just a tiny, tiny fraction of the real story.
And just look at this breakdown. It really puts things into perspective. In a real project, the actual machine learning code, the part that gets all the attention, is maybe, 15% of the work? The other 85%? That's all engineering. We're talking infrastructure, data pipelines, monitoring, all the stuff that happens behind the scenes. And that, my friends, is where we find MLOps.
Okay, so let's dive into that massive 85%. We're going to break down this huge gap between what people think machine learning is and the kind of messy reality of what it takes to make it work. We're going to see what more than just a model really means. This is the perfect way to think about it. The dream, what you see in a lot of tutorials, is just a few simple lines of code. It's like building one single shiny skyscraper. It's clean, it's elegant, but the reality? A skyscraper is totally useless if it's sitting in the middle of a desert. It needs a whole city to support it. You need roads to get to it, a power grid to light it up, sanitation systems. You need the whole shebang. And building that city? That's the hard part. Right, so all of this complexity exists for a reason. And that brings us to the core problem that MLOps is designed to fix. See, a model is just a snapshot. It's frozen in time. But the real world, it's always changing. And that creates this constant, never-ending loop of work.
And this whole thing has a name. It's called model decay. Basically, a model's performance gets worse over time because the real world changes. Let's say you build a fraud detection model. You train it on all the ways fraudsters are trying to cheat the system today. Great. But what about next week or next month? The fraudsters are smart. They're going to come up with brand new tricks. Suddenly, all those patterns your model learned are old news. It starts to fail. It's this constant cat and mouse game.
So what does that mean for you? Well, it throws you onto this hamster wheel. You have to constantly collect new data, retrain your model with it, push the new version out, and watch it like a hawk. And then, guess what? You do it all over again, forever. Now imagine trying to do all of that by hand. It's an absolute nightmare. It's slow, you're going to make mistakes, and it's just not sustainable. So, okay, we've got this chaotic, never-ending loop. That's the problem. So what's the answer? Well, the answer is we have to stop focusing on that one lonely building. It's time to zoom out and start thinking about how we're going to build and run the entire city. Which leads us to the big question, right? How do you actually do that? How do you turn that one lonely building into a whole thriving city? How do you give that isolated model the support system it needs to not just survive, but actually be useful in the real world? And the answer, you guessed it, is MLOps. Machine learning operations. Now, this isn't some magical piece of software you just buy. It's a culture, a set of practices. The best way to think about it is like urban planning for your AI. MLOps is the blueprint for the roads, the power grid, the water supply, all the things that turn a cool science experiment into something you can actually rely on day in and day out. Okay, so we know what MLOps is in theory. Now, let's get a little more concrete. Let's look at the actual blueprint for how this city gets built, one phase at a time. First up, phase 1. It's all about the data. This is the foundation of everything. You can't even dream about building a model until you've got good, clean, reliable raw materials. So this phase is all about setting up automated systems to pull in data, check that it's not garbage, clean up all the messy parts, and get it ready for training. Seriously, if you mess this part up, the whole rest of the project is basically built on quicksand. Then we get to phase 2, model engineering. Now, this is the part everybody gets excited about, actually training the model. But here's the key difference. In an MLOps setup, you're not just messing around on your laptop until something kinda works. No way. This is a structured, repeatable process. You're systematically training models, you're evaluating them super rigorously, and then you're packaging them up so they're ready to be plugged into the bigger system. And finally, we've got phase 3, code engineering. This is why the rubber really meets the road. This is about getting that model out into the world. You deploy it, you build the systems that let it make predictions for real users. And this part is absolutely critical, you monitor everything. I mean everything, every single prediction that's logged and tracked. Why? Because when that model decay starts to creep in, and trust me, it will, you'll catch it right away, not, 3 weeks later after it's already caused a ton of problems. So, we've gone through the what and the how, but let's wrap this up with the most important question of all. So what? Why should you care about any of this? What actually happens if you get this wrong? Well, when you have that lonely building just sitting there without a proper MLOps city around it, the risks are huge. For one, your model could just be too slow. We know for a fact that more than half of users will ditch a website if it takes more than 3 seconds to load. Ouch. Then there's fairness. Remember Microsoft's Twitter bot? It went off the rails and started spewing harmful content in just a few hours. That's what happens without proper guardrails. Then there's reliability. An unmonitored model can be failing silently for weeks, giving out terrible predictions, and you'd have no idea. And on top of all that, it's just a massive waste of time. Your engineers could spend their whole week just fighting to get one new model out the door. So at the end of the day, MLOps is what turns a cool science project into a product that actually provides real, reliable value. It's the difference between building something that just works once on your computer and building something that lasts out in the real world. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Is your machine learning project just a lonely building, or are you building a thriving city?